Of course, have the Lions and Jaguars coming up in Week 11 action from Ford Field in Detroit. Kickoff just after 1 o'clock Eastern time today. Couple of overarching storylines. The first is, people have probably seen by now, Ian Rappaport's story about possible changes in Jacksonville. Not exactly a revelation that a 2-8 team that is not playing well might be talking about things changing. But just to give you perspective, there is that on top of the fact that I think, Mike, you're playing the best team in the NFL today. I mean, I know Kansas City's undefeated, but I think the Lions may be a better team right now.
Yeah, they might be. They're the best team in the NFC, and they're certainly a very dangerous team. And I don't think it's a big surprise when the Jags' record is what it is. Yeah. They've lost as many close games. You can go both ways with that, but, you know, the argument is always that good teams find a way to win the majority of those close games, and the Jags have not done that this year. And the bye week is a natural break point in the season. If you're going to make a change, that often comes during the bye week, and all these things are coming to a head at the same time. There are a lot of, the big point spread. The Detroit Lions are favored by a couple of touchdowns in this game, and the feeling is, if the Jags get blown out today, it could be the final straw.
Of course, there's nothing that's been confirmed, and no comment from the Jaguars. It's simply sources talking about this. And listen, in other places around the league, Dallas, you can be sure they're having this conversation as well. And Doug Pederson talked a little bit about it with reporters after his press conference the other day. It's not as if he hasn't been fired before. It isn't as if he doesn't understand the way of this league and how things go. When you're in this position, these are the conversations that are had. Again, overarching storyline today is that there is a lot of pressure on this football team to go and play well. Here's the interesting part. They're 2-8. They've lost 6 games in the final 2 minutes, right, by 5 points or less. Had they just won half of those, they'd be 5-5. They'd be at the very tail end of the AFC, right where the Broncos are, fighting over the last 7 weeks of the season, 8 weeks of the season, to be in this thing. So you talk about good teams finding a way to win, and the Jaguars not having done that this year. That's where the frustration comes. Talking with some Jaguars fans this morning, epic amount of frustration around this team. Epic amount of frustration in the fan base as well.
Well, you look up in Indianapolis is 4-6, right? And you think, oh, that's terrible. But they're 2 games out in the win column of first place. And that's where the Jags would be. They'd be a game out if they, under that scenario, Brian, if they'd won 3 of those 6 games by 5 points or less that they've lost. So they didn't do that, though.
Nope.
And, a lot of them, there were some of them that they were behind early. Cosmetically, they made it a little bit closer. And certainly there were opportunities to win some of those games down the stretch, and they didn't perform in the clutch.
Yeah, the last 3 weeks in particular against 3 of the best teams in the NFC, the Eagles, the Packers, and the Vikings. And today, of course, they get the Lions. I understand Kansas City is undefeated. Watching this Lions team, though, it feels like they are the best team in the league. We'll find out. What we know is the Jaguars are not in that category, not on that tier. But at 2-8 headed to Detroit, the head coach understands what his team is up against, but understands that they're still fighting.
Group guys.
Let's see if we can get this rolling. Hold, please. Mike, I ask you why this happens to me every week.
I don't know, Brian, but I'm glad it happens to you.
I'm not sure
me.
that you have the answer to that, but here's the head coach.
No, it's really not. It's a great group of guys. This is week 11. Guys haven't really had a break, obviously, and they keep grinding. And are we defeated, disappointed, discouraged? I mean, there's moments of that, obviously, because of the way the season's going. But by no means are they, quitting or lack of energy or wanting to improve, get better as a team. I still see that, every single day.
We better see it today, because if you show signs of desperation against a team playing as well as Detroit, you find yourself in a hole early.
Yeah, no doubt. And I do agree with what Doug Pederson is saying. I mean, you've played NFC contenders each of the last 3 weeks, and you've been in those games. You made them close down the stretch. You just haven't been able to get over the hump, whether that's personnel, whether that's coaching, combination of those things. It likely is a combination of those things. But you know how this goes, Brian. You can't fire the players.
No.
At least not the majority of the players.
No.
So, if change comes, you got to look elsewhere.
And the Jaguars' best player is on the sidelines again, as quarterback Trevor Lawrence is inactive today, which means that backup quarterback Mac Jones, who led the offense, Mike, to only 7 points and then turned the ball over 3 times late in the ballgame last week, will get the start. But Pederson expects more from his backup quarterback today at Ford Field.
He's been in big games before. He knows how to handle them. I would expect that he's gonna rebound this week. Learn from it, obviously, as we all are, and move forward.
If the Jaguars are going to be in a close game today, the offense has to score.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Your defense isn't going to hold these guys to field goals. The offense has to come to life. Did you see anything that gives you the sense that it can?
Well, can it? Sure, it can. Do I think it's likely? No, I don't, quite honestly. Now, they got off to a nice start, second drive, touchdown, and I thought Mac Jones was playing decisively. And maybe that's the key. Find the plays that he was comfortable with, get the ball out of his hands quickly. He made quick decisions, got the ball out, and, he doesn't have the biggest arm, and he threw with some good anticipation on that drive. He brought a lot of energy. And after that, though, Brian, look, you got to come up with a way to get Brian Thomas Jr. the football, whether it's Mac Jones or anybody else playing quarterback. And they haven't been able to do that, or they've been unwilling to do that, because the narrative is we're doing what the defense is allowing us to do. We're going to take what's open. Well, sometimes when you've got a special player, you've got to create those openings.
Well, on both of the interceptions that he threw in the fourth quarter last week, when he was trying to throw at Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr. was open in the flat.
Right.
It would have been a much shorter gain, but what it tells you is the quarterback was playing with a little desperation, playing in front of his home crowd, back in the starting lineup for the first time in a year. But if you just take, as you said, what the defense gives you last week, Brian Thomas has more touches, and more touches with a guy like that could mean more points.
And I'll take my chances putting the ball in Brian Thomas Jr.'s hands 6 to 8 times, even on those short to intermediate passes, because he's such an athletic specimen. He can run after the catch. He can run away from guys. It doesn't have to be all over the top in one shot.
All right, so Mac Jones came to Jacksonville hoping to reclaim his NFL career and get another shot to be a starting quarterback. We talked about this. That's what Jared Goff did in Detroit. Baker Mayfield has done down the road in Tampa, and other quarterbacks. He isn't thinking about that this week, Mike. He's staying focused on the Lions, which he believes will be the best way to get that next opportunity.
Everybody's trying to play well each game, and my goal is to focus on this week, and I've historically done a really good job of that, and I need to get back to, like I said, playing fundamental, quarterback, and that's just the simple things, going through my reads, taking what the defense gives, and leading the team down the field and during practice and all that as well. So I'm trying to focus on the now and the present, and that's the best way to do it. You don't want to get generalized and look for the future or look back. So I understand that, this league is about opportunity, and we have a great one this week.
You don't know if he put a little extra burden on himself playing in front of the hometown fans last week and things like that. Like you talked about, he was throwing it down the field when he could have taken the easier underneath stuff. But here's a game where, Brian, no one around the National Football League thinks the Jaguars are going to win today. Right? You're on the road in a hostile environment. Just go out and let it hang out there. For all you know, this is the last opportunity you're going to get to show anyone what you're capable of doing. If Trevor Lawrence, knock on wood, is healthy enough to play after the bye week, obviously the Jags are going to go in that direction. So this is a big game for Mac Jones, but I think he needs to not necessarily treat it that way. He needs to treat it like, I'm just going to go out there and let it rip and the consequences be damned.
Well, I have a story about wanting to do a perfect broadcast for a resume tape once in my career, ironically against the Detroit Lions. And it was one of my worst broadcasts. Why? Well, because I was determined I was going to be perfect.
Right.
Well, you're not going to be perfect. If you try to do that, you find yourself making mistake after mistake. This is where the loose and free comes in. This is where you got to trust yourself in your preparation, trust the game plan, and trust your teammates to do their job and not try to force things.
Well, yeah, and, part of that is the coaching needs to get the ball in the hands of the playmakers. And so, going to be a big day for Travis Etienne. I think if the Jags are going to be able to stay in this football game with no Tank Bigsby, I think he could be a frequent target of Mac Jones today and a little bit of a safety blanket.
Well, and we hope that rookie wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr., who I think we both believe is the Jaguars' best offensive player, needs to see the ball today. And Doug Pederson talked this week about the Jaguars coaching staff knowing that. It's obvious. And they're working to make sure that number 7 makes a bigger impact today and through the rest of the season.
You can put them in stacks, bunches. You can move them around the formation a little bit. Do some things that way. It's, the only downside to it is the offense has to be stationary at the snap, so defense can still move and get lined up as well. So do the best we can to move him around the formation, and then on Brian to obviously know that he's going to be doubled at times, and he's just going to have to work to get himself free.
When I talk to coaches, after practice, before practice, you talk about Brian Thomas Jr. and it's almost like, duh. I mean, like, do you think we don't know that he's the best player? It's just a matter of finding the way to get the ball into his hands, and it isn't as easy, even though I like to say it. Take a deep shot to him down the field. They've got to get some things to go right. They've got to run the ball. They've got to distribute the ball around a little bit to find ways to get him open.
Sure, but every other team, basically, week by week in the National Football League, is finding a way to get their top target in the passing game his share of targets. Doug Pederson talked about those bunches and those stacks. I'm not seeing a lot of that out there. And granted, yeah, you got to be set before the defense, before you snap the ball, but that's true of everybody. That's true of Justin Jefferson. The Jags did a great job on him, but he still got nine targets last week. I mean, you look at Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr.'s running mate at LSU. He had a game this year where the Giants threw it 27 times, and 18 of them went to Neighbors, and they prioritized that, and they made it happen. And I think the Jags need to force the ball to him a little bit more, or at least force situations where they can get him the ball.
Don't force it to Gabe Davis. Force it to Brian Thomas
If you're
Jr.
going to force it, right? I'm not saying if the guy's got two guys draped all over him. You understand what I'm saying? But I think he can beat double teams, and I don't think he's double teamed on every snap. As we pointed out, there were occasions last week where Mac Jones just didn't go to him.
All right, well, let's talk about the defense quickly. The defense is bent. It bent a lot the last 3 weeks. But it's still given the Jaguars a chance to stay close and find a way to win in the end. Pederson would like more from his defense. I mean, who wouldn't? These are guys who've been on the field an average of 38 minutes the last 3 games, giving up an average of 425 yards. It's just not good enough. He wants more from them, but he believes they can win the way the defense is playing the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I don't think it's a sustainable recipe. I mean, you look at the last, I think, 3 games, they're averaging close to 80 snaps a game. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot on the defense. But, again, credit them. You hold a high-powered offense to 4 field goals, right? You're toe-to-toe with a chance to win against the Eagles. You come back against a good Green Bay team, and tie that thing at the end of the game. So, is it – I don't think over the course of a season is that sustainable. Probably not. But the way they're playing, yes, it is. I mean, they're playing good football. And honestly, a lot of defenses are that way. They're gonna kind of the bend but don't break mentality, and it's kind of the way the league is. I think the parity of the league and the way teams are today. So, can we live with the way the defense has been playing? Yeah, but then we've got to do our part offensively, now to score and to move the ball.
The Lions' offense is capable of breaking you.
Oh yeah, and they can do it in one play. They don't have to necessarily go dink and dunk, particularly with Jameson Williams on the outside. But look, we'll all take 12 points allowed any given week. But if you give up 400 yards, you're not going to be able to hold teams to 12 points all that often. And so the Jags did it by creating turnovers. And look, I get the bend but don't break mantra because that's what it is. You're forcing them to go 10, 12, in one case last week, 17-play drives and execute at a high level on that many plays. It's difficult to do, and Sam Darnold wasn't able to do that last week, and I think he contributed to those turnovers. I don't think he was his sharpest. Jared Goff's been a different story. He has been having one of the most accurate seasons of any quarterback in recent memory, and I don't think they're going to be giving you too many extra opportunities today.
Now, last week they did.
Last week he absolutely did.
Turnovers, and yet they still won.
Right, on the road.
And I loved his mentality at the end. I'd love to hear that from more Jaguars, and that is, you think I'm going to let a couple of bad plays get me down? I've been to the bottom before. I know what it feels like. You just got to keep going.
That game was such an outlier, though. He went through a stretch where I think over a 3-game period, he had the highest completion percentage in NFL history this year. And, yes, it was a bad one last week. Let's hope he has a hangover from that.
All right, this is the Publix Tailgate Show, and coming up,
we believe that, when it comes time to hold stout, we can do that. And so, we're just going to continue to play together and build off last week.
That's linebacker Devin Lloyd, who stops by to talk about bending but not breaking on defense in this week's Baptist Health Player Interview. But next, CBS Sports senior writer Pete Prisco's perspective with Mike Dempsey. This is the Publix Tailgate Show, and you're listening to Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
Sims Crane and Equipment is the Southeast premier crane rental company since 1959, serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama with cranes up to 800 ton for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is the Tadano rough terrain crane dealer for the state of Florida. Inspired by the past, committed to the future. Choose Sims Crane and Equipment for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Big Number 1 Duval Ford is trusted by Duval families, Duval businesses, and law enforcement across Florida. We are Jacksonville's largest Ford dealer by Ford sales, with the biggest service facility to keep everything in your driveway on the road. Shop Big Number 1 Duval Ford on Cassett Avenue for our low prices and nationally recognized service first experience. Big Number 1 Duval Ford, proudly serving Duval since 1916.
Brooks Rehabilitation is proud to be the official rehabilitation partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are here for them, and we are here for you. Ranked #1 physical rehabilitation hospital in Florida by U.S. News and World Report, our playbook is individualized treatment and exceptional care to get you back to living your life. Brooks has cutting-edge technology and therapy solutions in every care setting, treating sports injury, orthopedics, brain, spinal injuries, and more. Go beyond your expectations with Brooks Rehabilitation.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Detroit to take on the Lions this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's West Side. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game.
And we roll along here on the Publix Tailgate Show. Brian and Mike with you from the Hyundai Studios inside the Miller Electric Center in Jacksonville. Kickoff from Ford Field in Detroit just after 1 o'clock Eastern Time this afternoon. You caught up with Pete Prisco. I mean, we're getting into that part of the season and the schedule where it's a lot of fun around the National Football League. Meaningful football, and this one is not in that category this week.
Not for the Jags
Right.
as much. I mean, it's still meaningful for the Lions, obviously. And,
By the way, you realize they're 8-1 for the first time in 70 years.
Right. And, but they've got Green Bay nipping at their heels. They've got Minnesota nipping at their heels. So, it's not a foregone conclusion that NFC North is going to go in their favor. But today started out with Pete. Just wanted to look back quickly and get his impression of the quarterback play from last week.
Well, they better hope they can run the ball, because one thing, when you play this defense, if you get in second and third and long, they're going to throw a lot of big looks and different looks at you. It's complicated. So I'm concerned about that. But if they can run the ball and take some of that pressure off him, then I think he's smart enough. He's been around the league a long time. He'll be able to make some plays, but don't put him in second and third long situations.
All right, Pete, regardless of who's playing quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars today, don't they need to have a more concerted effort to get the ball in the hands of Brian Thomas Jr., and how do they go about doing that?
No doubt about it, Mike. And last week they talked about the cloud coverage and everything. But look, the great receivers, and I think he's on the way to being a great receiver, they need to get the ball, whether you're getting cloud coverage, double covered, triple covered, or whatever. You have to get him the football. And I think that was a disappointment that came out of the Eagles game last week. They didn't get him the ball. 4 targets, clearly not enough. get him some shots down the field. And then if you want to get him some crossers, get him some crossers. There's going to be opportunity in some one-on-one situations. Take advantage of those. And if they are doubled, still try and get him the football because that's how good he is.
We had Travis Etienne come back last week. Now, recently injured, missed some games, so maybe it was just by design a lightened workload. But, Pete, once he kind of batted that ball up in the air and it got intercepted, he only got one touch the rest of the game. So how do you think they're looking at this backfield right now between Etienne and Bigsby, and what are your expectations going forward on how they're going to divide up the work?
Well, I think ideally they like to use both of them, but when you make a mistake like that and you get dinged up, and they've both been dinged up, I think that limits what you can do with them, and that's probably why. I mean, I know Darius Johnson's their best back in terms of picking up their pass rush, but you have a one-on-one situation with him in the closing minutes to maybe go try and win the game. You got two other backs on the roster. That's questionable. So I think ideally you'd like to use both of them, but, when you make mistakes and you're not healthy, it's hard to do that.
Pete, we saw last week Brenton Strange played his fewest snaps of the year with only 9. Now, I get it. Every week, every team's different, so your game plan's not going to be identical, but we saw that 12 personnel package with the 2 tight ends that was so effective down the stretch against Green Bay, and then they just didn't even give it a look, and instead Austin Trammell got 33 snaps in this game. What did you make of the usage of Strange last week?
Bad. I thought it was a bad decision. The kid's starting to come on as a receiver. His reputation was being a blocker, but he started to come on as a receiver. Saw that the week before, and then only 9 snaps. It made no sense to me when you bring Trammell up off the practice squad and gets 33. So I think they got to get back to putting him on the field in whatever way, shape, or form and try and get him the football. It's not a dynamic receiving group right now other than Brian Thomas, so get Strange involved in the passing game.
When you see this Minnesota Viking offense this year, what is the best route to trying to disrupt it? Obviously, you want to get pressure on the quarterback, but is that the Jags? Clearly.
So if you want to go ahead and get back to that, let me see if there is a way I can find it real quick. What was Pete's central thought on the quarterback, which is what you asked him about?
Then he struggled last week. And, he doesn't know if it's going to get that much better in a short amount of time. You've got a big challenge. Detroit is pretty good on defense. They've got some playmakers in the secondary, particularly a guy like Brian Branch, and they're very opportunistic back there. And I think the fear is, Brian, you get behind and you get into a must-pass mode and you lose the balance in that offense, and then it puts a lot more on Mac Jones to become a playmaker, and that's not something that he's really shown to be most of the time he's played, as a starter in the National Football League. Again, got to simplify things. I think Etienne takes on a big role today, catching the ball out of the backfield, and we've talked about it, and really we've talked about it for weeks with Brian Thomas Jr. If they can't find a way to make some splash plays with him and take a little pressure off Mac Jones down in, down out, I think it's going to be a long afternoon. That's kind of what Pete agreed with.
All right, I have found the episode. So let's go ahead, and here's Pete Prisco this week's.
Well, he didn't perform very well last week. It wasn't very good. Kind of puts the focus more on how valuable, Trevor Lawrence is to that organization and that team. Can he get a better outlook here? No, I don't think so. I think this is a tough spot for Jacksonville. When you go on the road and you play that place with that team, they're home for the first time in a couple of weeks, and they didn't play that well last week. I think that's a bad combination for Mac Jones or whoever was playing quarterback.
And again, Pete, the narrative of not being able to get the ball to Brian Thomas Jr. continues to percolate. Only 3 targets for him this week. Doug Pederson was asked, what are some bunch formations, stacking guys, moving them around the formation? Are they doing that? Are they trying that? Because it certainly seems that every other team in the league gets more targets for their alpha wide receiver.
Yeah, and that's something that they have to make a focal point. I mean, this guy, no matter who he's getting covered by, no matter how they're covering him, if he's getting doubled, if you're not moving him around in the stack, you have to take shots and try and get him the football. I mean, you look around the league, the great receivers still get the ball when their teams when they're getting coverage rolled to that way and when they're getting matched up against the best corners in the league. So I think shying away from it is foolishness, and I think this is a big chance for him to go out there and take some shots. Look, the Lions don't have a great pass rush. We know that. Hutchinson's not there. I know Zadarius Smith is there now and will play, but it's not the same thing. So this is going to be an opportunity. You can take some of those deep shots.
And how do you think the offensive line has done in terms of pass protection recently. 3 sacks allowed last week, but with a backup quarterback in, I didn't think that was a terrible number.
No, and it wasn't awful. It wasn't great. I mean, Walker Little had a problem a couple times, but for the most part, I think they've done okay the last month of the season. They've improved there, but again, this is not a great pass rushing team, Mike. They're good on the interior, so the problems will come with if Sheriff and Morse have problems on the inside. I think that's going to be a problem as well.
All right, well, the Jags defense did allow a lot of yards, but they kept Minnesota off the scoreboard. No touchdowns allowed, only 12 points given up, and they did a really good job on Justin Jefferson. What was that, Pete? I mean, what got into the secondary? We had 3 interceptions, almost 4, 1 overturned on penalty when they only had 2 coming in all season.
Yeah, and the difference was they seemed, much more in tune with what they wanted them to do. I mean, guys that had struggled, like I'll give you an example. Darby had struggled big time. Savage had struggled big time. Both those guys showed up and played well. Monteric Brown played well when he was in there. So I think it was a combination of things on the outside, and then when you look at the guys on the pass rush, look, Josh Hines Allen not getting sacked, but still had plenty of influence on the quarterback. And Trayvon Walker, same type of thing. So I think you combine that with the better improvement in the secondary, and that's why they had those turnovers.
Detroit is loaded at the skill positions. Even if Sam Laporte is not playing, they've got guys that can hurt you on every level. Who is the main guy you're most concerned with? If you could take one guy out of the offense, other than the quarterback himself, who is the weapon that gives you the most problems?
Well, I think in the passing game, it's St. Brown. I mean, Williams can go and he stretches things, and aren't many guys who can run like that. But the guy that makes that whole thing go is what St. Brown can do in the middle of the field. You move the chains kind of stuff and catches a lot of passes, great route runner. You take him away, and then I think you can limit what they do, at least in the passing game. And last week, they weren't great on the offensive line. It's been the strong suit of their team, and it wasn't very good last week. So I think this is a chance for those pass rushers to try and get up the field. And for Trayvon Walker, it's a big game for him. I mean, remember, Hutchinson was picked, they picked Walker ahead of Hutchinson. Now, Hutchinson's not there. Walker's playing. So go out and influence the quarterback in a big way.
Yeah, no question. It could be a nice spotlight for him there. The Jags, have been competitive with some of the better teams in the NFC. And I know that's not the goal. The goal is to win football games, but this is the team in the NFC right now, Pete. In terms of keeping this team together and keeping them down the stretch, coming out of the bye, fighting for everything they can get the rest of the season, how important is it to at least be competitive today with the Detroit Lions?
Oh, I think it's enormous for them to be competitive and show well. I mean, you go into the bye and you don't show well, who knows what's going to happen. So I think from that standpoint, it's imperative that I don't think they're going to win the game, but it's imperative that they show up and play well. And I'll give them credit because they could have folded the shop against the Eagles and didn't. They hung around against the Vikings last week and played well at times. And so I thought, hey, maybe they're not quitting. But if this thing gets away from them, it could get really ugly.
Do you think it does get away from them, or could the Jags make this a fourth quarter game today?
No, I do think it gets away from them. I think it's a bad spot against a team at home. Didn't play well last week. And here's the other part of that equation is, it's a tough place to play, Mike? But, history there hasn't been great either. Remember when they went there in 1995, they took a knee with 5 minutes to go in the game because it was 44-0. It won't be that bad, but it's going to be pretty ugly, I think, today.
Let's hope that's not the case, in terms of the Jags' competitiveness today, Brian. But look, they are loaded. That's a simple fact. And one thing I disagree with Pete there, and I understand what he's talking about with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's going to put up big numbers. He'll be your leading receiver for the Detroit Lions at the end of the year. He's their best receiver, but he's not the one that can hurt you the quickest. And I really fear for Jameson Williams going deep against this secondary today.
Against a defense that has given up an epic amount of explosive plays, and Jeff Lageman can speak to that when we talk to him coming up in about 15 minutes. But this defense is on track to set a franchise record for explosive plays, which are defined specifically as, I think, being a pass of more than 16 yards. Seems like kind of a random number. But this defense with that offense, you better play perfect. And that's a very tough thing to do.
We'll find out.
Yeah, from a guy who's not been very perfect today. Sorry about that interview issue. When we come back, we'll have the Baptist Health player interview. Plus, we're about 15 minutes away from Tony Baselli and Jeff Lageman from the booth. The Lions and Jaguars coming up at 1 o'clock from Detroit, and this is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Want to make sure he gets to the game on time?
Tommy, your uniform is ready. Let's go!
Install a natural gas dryer, and you're guaranteed faster drying times and softer laundry. And now you can earn a valuable cash rebate up to $200 on an energy-efficient natural gas dryer. Show your home love with natural gas, and it loves you right back. To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Detroit to take on the Lions this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's West Side. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
Feeling hungry, Jaguars fans? Fuel your Duval energy with a delicious Stallmeyer all-beef hot dog on game day as you support your Jacksonville Jaguars. Whether you're at the game or at home, it's not game day without a Stallmeyer all-beef hot dog made in Florida. Stallmeyer all-beef hot dogs will fuel your energy to help bring on a victory for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Stallmeyer all-beef hot dogs are available at your local Publix supermarkets. Don't feel hungry, Jaguars fans. Fuel your energy with the official hot dog of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Stallmeyer.
Flight by Yuengling is the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yuengling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yuengling. Available wherever beer is sold. DG Yuengling & Son Incorporated, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
And we are back on the Publix Tailgate Show, brought to you by our friends at Publix. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Brian and Mike with you from the Hyundai Studios. The Lions and Jaguars kick off at 1 o'clock at Ford Field in Detroit, and it's time for our weekly commentary from Rick Ballou.
Tough to believe, but the Lions have never been to a Super Bowl. They remain one of 4 teams in the NFL who haven't, joining Cleveland, Houston, and yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I look at this team and I just shake my head. I remember when Dan Campbell was hired. I remember laughing, thinking there's no way it's going to work, right? One of those hired to be fired deals. And, his comments about we're going to bite the kneecap off. Man, has it ever worked. What a sensational coach. They play hard for him. He has built a power, and it was my preseason pick, Detroit, to actually rep the NFC. So we'll see. Today's going to be an interesting game, no doubt about it. Unfortunately for me, I think this is it for Doug Pederson. I really feel that way. I've never been a big fan of throwing bodies out the door during the mid part of the season, or in this case, there'll be at least, a bye week and 6 games remaining. But it has to happen. His voice has gone away, and that's what Jacksonville needs, someone else to listen to for the remaining part of the season. And I'm going to admit, I hate this. I was wrong. I know in the business people don't like to admit that they were, but completely that is the case for me. I thought Doug Pederson was absolutely the best possible man to bring in Trevor Lawrence and develop Trevor Lawrence. It just hasn't happened. Today it's pretty simple, especially with Tank Bigsby out. Get the ball to Brian Thomas Jr. 0 targets in the first half last week, only 3 in the entire game against Minnesota, 2 receptions for 12 yards. That can't happen. They're going to have to pass today if they're going to have to pull off the upset, or if they're able, to pull off the upset. The only way that happens is by getting Brian Thomas Jr. more opportunities. That's it, folks. Enjoy the game. Should be very interesting in Detroit.
You can get more of Rick Ballou on Into the Night with Rick Ballou weeknights from 6 to 8 on 1010 XL. Mike, he did touch on something regarding the Jaguars' offense today without Tank Bigsby. This could be a day where Mac Jones has to throw the ball 40 times. That's never a formula for success in the NFL.
No, well, you'd like to have some balance early on to keep you in the football game so you don't get put in that position. But, look, I think if you're going to have to throw the ball more, you're better off having Travis Etienne than Tank Bigsby because he's the more prolific pass catcher. Didn't have a great week in protection last week. That's got to get cleaned up.
Well, and he also had that one ball that he tipped up into the air against the Eagles where it appeared that he was careless with it. You can't be careless against this defense today. You
can't pop it up like that.
And you got to help the quarterback. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Mac Jones is a guy who is not going to put this team on his back and carry them down the field. I think he looks like a game manager. I know people will take that in the pejorative, but he's a guy who you can win with, but everyone else has to play near the top of their game.
Yeah, it's not a guy that you're often going to be able to jump on his back and have him carry you.
Right. All right, well, time now for our player interview presented by the Jacksonville Orthopedic Institute, the official sports medicine provider of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Linebacker Devin Lloyd is the Jaguars' leading tackler in his first season playing middle linebacker. He isn't happy when you mention the defensive rankings or tell him how long they've been on the field in recent weeks, but he does like that they've managed to make enough plays to give the Jaguars a chance to win. He knows the obstacle in front of them today and has appreciation for the job they have to do in order to be able to pull off the upset.
You know, the O-line's working really well together. I think it all starts up front with them, and they're getting the run game going, and then everything kind of rolls off of that. So, you know, that's going to be an emphasis for us. But they're a great offense. You know, the quarterback's playing really well. Completion percentage is really high. The backs are running really efficiently, and obviously, you know, they got explosive receivers. So, challenging offense, just like, you know, how we've played really the last few weeks. And, you know, I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL right now. So, you know, we got to be assignment sound and play fast.
Listen, yards aside, right? I mean, you broke serve a couple of times. You held them to just 4 field goals last week. Your confidence level's got to be pretty high, right, coming into a game like this?
Yeah, confidence high every week. I think, you know, last week we obviously the turnovers helped big time. You know, we gave it more yardage than we would like defensively, but we believe that, you know, when it comes time to hold stout, you know, we can do that. And so, you know, we're just going to continue to play together and build off last week.
What does success look like against an offense that can put up 30 or 40 points? I mean, do you say we're going to hold these guys to 28? I mean, what's a reasonable expectation of success?
I think biggest thing for us is the turnovers. The turnovers is something we hang our hats on. So 3+ is our goal every week. And then obviously being great on third down, you know, getting them third down and then executing on third down. I think just success for us is our team having more points than their team. You know, ultimately, it comes down to wins and losses.
Noticed on the practice field this week that there was an energy level. Guys were laughing and having fun. Despite 2-8, it's pretty important to have that personality, that energy level, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, at the end of the day, you know, this is a beautiful opportunity that we have because, you know, we're playing at NFL and we have an opportunity to go out and earn the right to go 1-0. And so, you know, that's the mindset you have to put aside anything that's happened, you know, so far this season. Understand that, you know, as deep as we are into the season, you know, we still have the opportunity to go 1-0, and our goals are still in front of us.
Yeah, with 7 games left to play, it has to be that mentality, right?
Right, absolutely. You can't just tank the season.
They have big receivers. They have Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, they can do a lot of different things, but their tight end's pretty darn good too. And you've gone through a run of some really good tight ends. How do you have to handle that? Is that all communication between the linebackers and the safeties?
Yeah, you know, we have to be really clean as far as communication, and then just playing assignment sound. That's really what it comes down to, getting a body on a body and match coverages and zone coverages, sorting everything out. It all just comes down to execution and being in the right spot.
Final question is the easiest and the hardest at the same time. What would one win do for this football team?
Obviously boost the morale big time, especially against a team, top 3 team in the league. Boost the morale and just get us going on the right track.
Well, today, 2 guys in front of him have played very well in the recent weeks, Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. I grabbed Bill Shuey off the practice field this week and asked him what he needed and what gives his guys a chance to play well today against a Lions offense that's firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously they're one of the better teams in the league right now. Their record shows that, and they play a great brand of football, and so we look forward to the challenge, but it's going to be a great challenge.
41 and 44, I think the last 2 weeks have played out of their minds. Great football. The pressure that they have gotten has been consistent. What have you seen from those 2 guys that gives you a sense of how they'll play today?
Well, I think for those guys, every week is another opportunity to get better. We always talk about the season in quarters, and then each week is its own separate entity, an opportunity to get better and to work hard. And I think those guys approach it that way. And then it's just kind of trying to take 1 week at a time and compound it. So a little 1% improvement one week, the next week you get another percent, and at the end of the season you're a much better player than you were at the beginning, and that's the goal.
I thought Josh maybe played his best game of the season last week against Cam Robinson. I know he didn't have 3 sacks like he had the week before, but boy, he was just there the whole game. He never stopped coming.
Yeah, and that's got to be our approach. We got to be relentless, and you just don't know. Like, these games are so close and so highly contested that you don't know which play could be the play that turns the game in your favor. And so, we have trust in the guys behind those guys, or playing with those guys. I don't even want to say behind them, but with Eric and Yasir and Miles and whoever's up, that the next guy can do their job. And so, those guys are going to take a lot of reps, but we also need the other guys to come in and keep them as fresh as possible, because we need maximum effort in every play, because we just don't know. Like you said, every single play is an opportunity to affect the game, and we need to look at it that way.
And there will never be a Detroit Lions game played by Trayvon Walker that it won't be a comparison kind of game. So for everybody who's listening, right, and Aiden Hutchinson isn't playing today, and he's not the story, and he's not this question, but Trayvon Walker has been a monster all season long. He just, a couple years into it, he looks like a complete football player.
Well, he's playing with confidence, and he works hard. And like I said, his work ethic, usually the way I look at it, if you can prepare yourself to the point where you feel like you know what's going to happen, and about, it always starts with you first, and then your opponent, and then the game plan, and that you're going to play with confidence. And that's kind of been the goal last year and then into this year, is that, you play with confidence, you play with speed, because again, athletically, he's one of the better athletes at the position. And so my goal as a position coach is to help him play with and just demonstrate the athleticism that he has on a play-to-play basis. And he's a naturally physical guy anyway, so just trying to make sure that his mindset's right so he can physically try to dominate each rep.
Jared Goff said after throwing 5 interceptions last Sunday night in Houston that he's been to the bottom before and he's not going to let a bad play distract him. How do you affect a quarterback like that doesn't let you get into his head?
Yeah, it's really got to be about what we do, and he needs to take that approach, I would imagine. Most players are going to take that approach, but we just got to worry about winning our one-on-ones and doing our 1/11th and doing our job and trying to win our matchup. And then the compounding effect of us doing that, we'll just have to see if that has an effect on him or not. But that's what we got to do. We got to control what we can control and win our 1/11th and really win the first second of every down.
What do you need to see from Eric Armstead and from Yasir behind those 2 guys? What do they have to contribute to have a successful outing?
They just got to be the best version of themselves, really. I mean, because they're good football players. They just got to play up to their standard and do it consistently. And then there'll be times, where those guys are on the field at the same time also. And so they got to play with each other. All 4 of them are going to be out there sometimes, at times. And we've had those packages, and they've got to play well, complimenting the man next to them. But really, again, it just comes down to winning your job. And when they have a chance to go in and play on the edge, just dominating their matchup.
Listen, 2-8 isn't fun, but watching your team on the practice field this week, it looks like they're having fun, taking advantage of the opportunity. Is that the message?
That is the message. I mean, each opportunity, each week in the NFL is a blessing, and you got to take advantage of it. You just don't know, when that opportunity could be taken from you. And so when you have the opportunity to play the game, you had another week in front of you, make the most of it and enjoy it, because you're getting to do something that you love to do for a profession. And, as a competitive person, there's an opportunity out there for you to compete. And so you got to take advantage of that one snap at a time, really.
Tony and Jeff are with us when we return to the Publix Tailgate Show right after this on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Champions are built from the support and encouragement they get from the team around them. No one knows that better than Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr.
As one of the nation's largest pediatric health systems, Nemours Children's Health gives hope to future champions every day to go well beyond their limits. Together, we can redefine children's health. We are Nemours Children's Health.
Touchdown at Jaguars away games when you fly nonstop from Jacksonville International Airport. Join the Jaguars in Miami and Houston. Watch them win in Philly, Detroit, Nashville, and Las Vegas. All the other Jaguars games are just one short connection away. And if airport parking has you stressed, be sure to visit the Jax Airport website before traveling to the terminal. On it, you'll find information about the status of on-airport parking in real time. See if your favorite areas are available or if you need to call an audible. Visit flyjax.com for more information.
Hey fans, it's Tyson Campbell, cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This season, your game day is getting even tastier with Al's Pizza in the stadium. And every time we get a pick, you'll score. If the Jaguars get one interception, you'll enjoy buy one, get one free pizza at any Al's Pizza location Monday through Thursday after the home game. 2 interceptions, a free dessert. And 3 interceptions, that's a free appetizer. Just tell them you want the Jags pick. Up your game and get your Al's Pizza at the game or any of their locations.
Jags fans, are you ready to upgrade your living space? Enter for a chance to win the ultimate furniture giveaway. You could enhance your home with a new sectional, queen mattress, or queen bedroom set, courtesy of Furniture Source. One lucky fan will receive new furniture after every Jaguars home game this season. Don't miss out. Enter today by visiting Jaguars.com/sweepstakes. Jaguars.com/sweepstakes. Selections will vary by game.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Detroit to take on the Lions this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's West Side. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game.
Welcome back to the Publix Tailgate Show. Brian and Mike with you from the Hyundai Studios in Jacksonville. Kickoff between the Jaguars and the Lions at Ford Field in Detroit comes your way just after 1 o'clock Eastern time today. Time now for the first rounds on us. First Rounds on Us is presented by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history. And Jeff Loggeman and Tony Baselli join us from the booth at Ford Field in Detroit, which is subtly one of the nicer places in the NFL to call a game from.
Oh, it's a great view. I mean, Brian, we're right on about the 33-yard line. Not too high. It's a great, we were talking about it, for a stadium that's been around 20-plus years now. It's a great stadium.
Yeah, they did it right.
They did it right. It is really a good stadium, and it's held up the test of time.
And you know what makes this place great? I mean, this fan base is
they're crazy.
Crazy for their Detroit Lions right now. And Brian and Mike, look, the last 2 weeks they've been on the road. 4 out of their last 5 games they've been on the road. And, of course, they're on a 7-game winning streak. I can imagine that this place is going to reach a fever pitch today, so the Jaguars better get ready to deal with some noise.
And they are 8-1 for the first time in 70 years, since 1954. So let's get started with Finding Solutions, presented by the University of Florida, the #1 university in the U.S. News and World Report's #1 state for education. Look, there's no way that the defense holds these guys to 4 field goals. That's not happening 2 weeks in a row. I feel confident in that, which means that the offense has got to find a way if this game is going to stay close. So here's the question. How can this offense be more functional early on? How can they find a way today? What can they do that you are confident in?
Well, I don't have a lot of confidence, Brian. I don't think, we haven't seen anything to give you confidence. So, but what do you do, and how do you approach this? Well, I think you're going to need help from your defense and special teams. You need some short fields, so good field position. Got to play field position football. Steal some possessions, maybe score on defense or special teams. And then offensively, I do not believe that you can count on Mac Jones leading you consistently down the field. And so that means you have to run the ball, and you're going to have to stick to the run because I think that's your best chance. And now the question is what happens, Jeff, the first couple of series if you get, 1, 2, 3, For me, it's stick to it. Just keep on going to it, play action pass off it, because I don't think you can function in a positive manner by just dropping back and throwing the ball around.
No. I mean, look, the reality is that Mac Jones didn't play well last week. I mean, the feet were moving a lot, which means that he was unsure and not confident. And so, look, they got to calm his world down. And you calm a quarterback's world down by, number one, running the football and then taking the pressure off of him. And then he also has to be able to take advantage of some easy completions, which he didn't do last week. Find the running back, find the tight end, Evan Ingram, on some easy throws underneath.
Yeah.
One of those interceptions that he had last week. Gabe throws the ball down the field to Gabe Davis. He's got 3 guys underneath that literally he can take his pick. Any of those threes is an easy completion on a 2nd and 9, I think it was, and would have given him a manageable 3rd down, maybe a 1st down. So, he's got to play better this week. Those around him have to play better this week. And most importantly, you better find a way to get the ball in his hands more so than you did last week when you allowed a team to just eat up the clock and possess the ball.
And, guys, today the Jags are going to play this game under a bit of a cloud, right, with the bye week coming up. But Ian Rappaport reporting that there could be major changes coming if the Jags get blown out today. As a player, when that kind of stuff is swirling around, what does it do to your focus? Does it sharpen it? Does it distract you? How do they react today?
Well, I don't think it really does either one. And the reality is that kind of conversation that goes on in the media is going to happen. I mean, the reality is you're a 2-8 football team that had high expectations, and they're not being met. And then if you look in the last 16 games, the Jaguars are 3-13. I mean, so those things happen. And the players in the locker room know what it's all about. I mean, they're professionals. They've been around it, and they know that it's going to happen. And you got to do your best as a player to focus and play your game and try to block out the noise, and that's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. But, I give this Jaguars team credit. Over the last X number of games, there was plenty of opportunity to just lay down and to not finish ball games. But this team, I give them credit now, from Philadelphia to last week, this team has battled to stay in ball games. But the reality is they haven't battled to win the games.
Yeah, and I think this talk and noise has been going on locally for a couple of weeks now. So as a player, I don't think I'm with Jeff. I don't think it has a big impact. And I too, and I'll give not only the players, but I'll give the coaches credit, because it would have been very easy for guys to check out the last couple of weeks. And we have not seen that yet, and I don't think we will this day either. And so as a player, I think you hear it. It goes in one year out the other, because at the end of the day, you realize I got to go play. And at some level, all professional athletes have a little bit of selfishness in them, and it's about not embarrassing yourself and going out there and giving a great effort, because you know it's going to live on film forever. And so I don't think it's a big deal, Mike. I think it's a fair question. I don't think it has any impact on today's game.
I thought for sure, like last week, when you had the fumbled exchange.
I thought it was over.
And I was like, oh, no. And then they battled.
Yep.
And then he throws the interception. All right, here it comes. No, they battled.
Yep.
And then they did it again at the end, So I give the team credit. But the reality is that those conversations happen when you're not having success. That's just the reality of the National Football League.
All right, you always want to see your pass rush disrupt the opposing quarterback. Detroit's got arguably the best line in football today, but maybe a little extra spotlight on Trayvon Walker, who was the first pick ahead of Aiden Hutchinson, who's out for the year now. That comparison's always going to be made between the two players and the two franchises. Do you think this is a game that Trayvon gets a little extra hyped up for?
Well, I hope he's a little extra hyped up because he's going against a really good football player that hasn't given up a sack all year long in Penei Sewell, and has only given up 2 quarterback hits. I mean, so he's going to have his hands full. But the reality is, to get to that point where he can rush the passer, you've got to stop the 2 best running backs in the National Football League, and the numbers back it up. I mean, those 2 guys together have 1,247 yards rushing, and that's Montgomery and Gibbs. There's not a running back room in its entirety in the National Football League that have more rushing yards than them, and I think they're going to be a huge part of the game plan behind one of the best offensive lines in football, and I think they're going to be a big part of that game plan in the passing game as well, Tony, because Sam Laporta is out, and I don't know if there's a better screen team than the Detroit Lions when they get Penei Sewell out in front.
Well, and I think everyone, is infatuated with Ben Johnson and the creativity of what he does, but if you kind of watch the tape,
I think it's all Mark Brunell. I think it's Mark Brunell's influence.
Yeah, exactly. But if you kind of, Jeff, and you know this, if you watch the tape and kind of look at it for what it is, this is a run-first physical football team that wants to throw it 25 times or less a game. I mean, that's who they are. And they're going to take shots off the play-action pass. But at its core, because this is who their head coach is they want to beat you up. And they want to run the ball and control the game that way, and then move the pocket, make it easy reads for the quarterback, guys running wide open because of the run game, the play-action fake. So I think the biggest issue for Trayvon and Josh is, you better stop the run on first and second down because you're going to get a heavy load of that coming right downhill at you. You're going to have to earn the right, Jeff, today to rush the passer.
All right. And just real quick, Brian, How many teams in the National Football League do you know that have 11 offensive linemen on their 53-man roster?
Only one.
One. Detroit Lions.
Yep. That is the mindset of Dan Campbell. All right, folks, thank you very much. Have a great broadcast, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Boys.
And that'll do it for hour number 1. JP Shadrick has just walked into the studio, and you've got 2 hours to go before we get set for kickoff. Mike, thanks so much.
I'll see you in 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, see you at the postgame show. That'll do it for this first hour. You've been listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Detroit to take on the Lions this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's West Side. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings. Before the game, after the game, and during the game. Tackle your marketing needs with Kessler Creative. Providing direct mail services for more than a decade, Kessler has a wide range of services from small mailers to large banners and signs. Draft Kessler as your first pick to receive the best targeted mail list. Elevate your business and be on the winning team with Kessler Creative. Kessler Creative. Results-driven marketing and proud partner of your Jacksonville Jaguars.
The kick is up. It's good!
Score winning sub deals this Jaguar season at Firehouse Subs. Receive 50% off on any sub when the Jaguars kick a field goal of 40 yards or more. It's a bold deal for the bold city. Download the Firehouse Subs app for offer details. Redeemable only at participating Jacksonville and Orlando area restaurants. Only available in the Firehouse Subs app.
Ancient City Brewing is celebrating 30 years of Jags football by becoming the proud craft beer partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what better way to celebrate a throwback year than to throw back some of their expertly crafted beers? From Augustine's Orange Amber Ale to their Castillo Coconut Porter, there's always something new to discover at Ancient City Brewing, including the new First and Gold Golden Ale, coming soon to a Duval County store near you. Ancient City Brewing, taste history, make history, and please always drink responsibly.
The Publix Tailgate Show continues right now.
And it's hour 2 of the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. 2 hours away from the Jacksonville Jaguars at 2-8, the Detroit Lions at 8-1. Kickoff at 1 o'clock at Ford Field in downtown Detroit. JP Shadrick with Mike Dempsey. We're at the Hyundai Studios of the Miller Electric Center. Teams going in opposite directions. Obviously, the Jaguars have dropped 3 in a row. The Lions are on a hot streak right now. They had to rally last week in Houston to win, but they got the job done. The Jaguars are scuffling, just trying to find a way here to get to the bye week with everything still intact, with all the reports this morning of possible changes on the horizon. Well, that's what happens when a team is 2-8. Those changes and those rumors get out there.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's nothing that hasn't been alluded to here. You know, we've looked ahead, and you can't get in the head of Shad Khan. He speaks for himself. He's the owner of the team. Nobody knows what he's going to do, but it's the logical break point in the season if you don't win this game and if you lose it in embarrassing fashion, let's say. By the way, Detroit's on a hot streak. Their season is a hot streak, right? They're arguably the best team in the National Football League. They don't have the best record, but they're the top team in the NFC, and they look as dangerous as anybody.
Game day weather brought to you by the St. Johns River Water Management District. Florida's water, it's worth saving. Of course, they play in a dome in Detroit, so perfect conditions there today. Here in Jacksonville is getting perfect as well. 71 degrees currently, high of 76. Bright Florida sunshine in Jacksonville today. Here are some of today's top stories, starting with head coach Doug Pederson announcing Wednesday that Trevor Lawrence would be out this week. Mac Jones makes his second straight start. Doug Pederson on what Jones brings in week 2.
He's a veteran quarterback, so he's played. He's started in this league. He knows how to handle that. I think, too, leadership-wise with the guys, you see him communicate with the players, on and off the field, with us as coaches as well. I think the third thing is how well he does communicate with us when it comes to the game plan, what he likes, what he doesn't like, and then just his overall work ethic, how he prepares, for these games. I think, really gives him the best opportunity, playing in these games.
So we'll see what Mac Jones brings to the table today. Second time around, full week of reps. Can't get much worse than last week.
No, he had the turnovers, and more than we've seen Trevor Lawrence having a game this year. Not that Trevor Lawrence hasn't had his issues in the past with turnovers, but it's pretty evident. I mean, Trevor Lawrence can elevate this team. He can make throws that not every quarterback in the National Football League can make. He's bigger, he's stronger, he's faster. I mean, Mac Jones is a little bit mobile. We've seen when he's got a little straight line ability to run if he breaks containment. But, I mean, they've just got to get the ball out of his hands quickly today, JP. They're going to have a decent running game, try to stay balanced early on. And I think if they're going to have success, he's going to have to get the ball to Travis Etienne and Dearness Johnson a lot in the passing game.
No doubt. Tank Bigsby out today, a scratch in the running game. Let's hear from Mac Jones, looking for a bounce back this week.
Yeah, I thought we played with good tempo in and out of the huddle. Obviously, there's a lot of things to work on throughout the game, but it boils down to finishing better by me. I thought I left 3 plays out there. And if you change those 3 plays, then maybe the outcome's a little different. So that's how I'm looking at it. That's the truth. And I'm going to learn from it and move on. And I've been here before, which is tough, but you also have one choice, and that's to get up and keep going. So that's what I'm going to do.
That's Mac Jones, of course, a couple interceptions last week, lost a fumble on a snap. Now, the other part of this thing, too, is that he wears his emotions on his sleeve, let's say. and you saw his reactions after things weren't going so well that might have spilled over onto the sideline as well. Managing that part of his game today when things aren't going well, I think is a big step for him.
Oh, absolutely. You got to be, calm and poised in the moment. I thought he did a good job after the game, actually, because you look at it, I thought the snap was a bad snap. I mean, you got to be able to receive it. I get it, but Mac Jones took all the blame for that. He took all the blame for the interceptions, even though Travis Etienne batted the ball up in the air, So he is a guy who's been around the block a little bit, and he's a professional, and he says the right things, and I think he does have some leadership qualities to him, JP, but the best leadership quality out there is for him to play well, throw the ball accurately and on time, and get the ball in the hands of his playmakers today.
And one of those playmakers, tight end Evan Ingram, was asked this week how they can jumpstart the offense.
I mean, it's very simple. Just got to play better. Got to execute. Everybody has to do their job better. Yeah, it's very simple. We're going to get another opportunity on Sunday. That's the best part about it. We're going to attack it head on. I had a great day today. Energy in here is great. Attitudes are great, and so that's how we're going to roll. We're going to continue to fight, and good is eventually going to come for sure.
All right, attitudes are great. Everything's great. All these things are great, but they've lost 6 one-score games this year. It's not so great at the end of games, and executing when it matters has been a problem for this team.
Yeah, we've heard about this for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? Doug Pederson's brought it up. We practice fantastic, right? We just can't take it from the practice field to the game. And it's not just one thing, JP. It's not a handful of players or one position group that's letting them down. And, in fact, it ultimately seems to alternate many weeks. One week the offense is there and the defense doesn't show up, or it's vice versa. Last week the defense held Minnesota to 12 points, gave up a lot of yards, but they didn't break. The bend but don't break, and the offense just could not capitalize. And that's been the story of the season. A play here, a play there, but when you consistently fail to make those plays, you can't go, oh, we're in everything. You've got to find a way to win at least your share of those games, if not more than your share. And if they had just split their close games, they'd be right there in the division race right now.
Let's hear from Mitch Morse, Jaguars center, on this Lions defense they're going up against today that has given up some yardage this year, but when it comes down to nitty-gritty time in the red zone, goal to go, takeaways, this is a good group on the Lions defense.
Well, not only is it a good scheme that they run, but individually they have talent all over the defense. I think especially the interior of that defensive line is good. And, of course, they got Za'Darius, who's a great player. And those linebackers, whether they're in base or nickel, pose challenges of their own. So, yeah, there's a reason why they're 8-1. They play team football. They rally around each other, and it'll be a great competitive atmosphere, and we're going to have to match their intensity and understand that we're going into a hostile environment.
Yeah, no doubt about that. The Lions in first place in the NFC North today, home field advantage in the Dome at Ford Field. And let's flip it around now to the other part of the trench game today. Jaguars defense against a Lions offensive line that can play. Penei Sewell is at right tackle, has not allowed a sack this year. Trayvon Walker on the matchup on the offensive right side today.
Well, he's definitely a great player. He's been one of those guys that's been talked about a lot in the media, and you turn on the film, you see the work that he does. Obviously, I'm looking forward to it, and it's going to be a great challenge.
It will be a great challenge today. Let's see what Trayvon Walker has. You guys were talking about it earlier. Yeah, he's going against the Lions team that probably, who knows if they'd have taken him second if he was there, but he went first ahead of Aiden. Aiden's out with the leg, the whole thing. They'll be compared together the rest of their careers. But for Trayvon Walker and for Josh Hines-Allen today, pass rush key to get home on Jared Goff today.
It's tough to do, though, right? Yeah. Because it's a balanced team, and they don't get in too many obvious passing situations, and they are content throwing the ball 20, 25 times, and they'll rely on David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, and they can also hit those guys out of the backfield, get the ball out of Goff's hands pretty quickly. Now, Goff had a very uncharacteristic game last week. He threw 5 interceptions. If he puts the ball in danger, you got to make plays on it today, whether you're getting the pass rush or not, and that's the one thing that can in any football game, even the playing field a little bit, but I think the Jags are going to need multiple turnovers at the Lions' expense today to stay in this in the fourth quarter.
And then finally, Andre Cisco on the back end of this Jaguars defense, trying to keep the frustration away as we near the bye week.
As a team, it's super frustrating. I think the emotion in the locker room kind of spoke to that. But as we move forward, I think it's really always something that you could hope for, especially in the NFL. Like I said, they make it so that Week 18 is something that you could play until. So, for us, we still have a chance to, get where we want to go. Obviously, it's going to be extremely difficult, and we have a long road ahead. But taking it week by week and, more importantly, day by day, could put us in the right spot.
There you have it, some of the best sound of this week before the Jaguars-Lions matchup at Ford Field, Detroit. Jags fans can't make the game. We get it. You can easily donate your Jags tickets to VetTix military veterans in the community through the Jaguars ticketing account page. Select more on the ticket page and select the game you'd like to donate. VetTix, tickets for troops. Let's head to Ford Field in downtown Detroit. Kai Stevens standing by ahead of this Jaguars-Lions matchup. And good morning, Kai. How are you?
Hello, JP, from your favorite city.
I'm in my home away from home. Spent about half a month there last year, it felt like.
You moved in. I felt like you should have gotten an apartment at that point.
You could have just stayed at my place there. I'm kidding. So how about last night? What's going on in Detroit? There's some energy in that town, right?
Yeah, there sure is. I mean, we've seen it last year as well. Just they've been dying. They've always been loyal football fans, but to now have the product that they have on the field, seeing that success, almost making a Super Bowl, and then now this year where they're sustaining that has been very much enlightening to this fan base here, and they're definitely embracing it.
All right, this Jaguars running game today, Kai, without Tank Bigsby, a guy who's obviously earlier in the year stepped up in a big way, and they've leaned on him a lot this year, but he's not out there. Travis Etienne no longer on the injury report. They got Dearness Johnson today. Velus Jones has been elevated. There's some a state of flux, if you will, for this running game, but we're counting on Travis Etienne to be back to his old self today.
Yeah, obviously not having Tank Bigsby, not ideal for this team right now, especially because they struggled to establish the run with Mac Jones last week. But Travis Etienne really needs to take this opportunity, not get too frustrated with what's given out there, and stay with the run.
Well, you can't get frustrated. I feel like once you get frustrated, you let the devil rob you of your dream, for real. I feel like we all just work to get here tirelessly for our whole lives, and we only get 17 opportunities. So you can't get frustrated because now the game, that moment, that play you've been working for all year, you can't even make it because you're so focused on what happened. Listen, like the Kobe Bryant, I've been listening to him a lot, and just him, he didn't airball game-winning shots, but he's not worried about airballing the next one. He's worried about going and make that play. And I feel like for us, we have to just next play up, okay? Football is all about ebbs and flows. Not everything's going to be perfect, which we know, but it's all about how can you make that next play when your name's called.
That's Travis Etienne Jr. this week. Little Mamba mentality is never bad for anybody there, Kai.
That's a good thing. I mean, we were talking so much about Tank, and, Travis Etienne's name comes up on the trade block. He was hurt, out for a while. Everybody, and rightfully so, Tank was playing great, but now with this opportunity, Tank not in the game, Travis Etienne fully healthy at this point, needs to utilize this opportunity, and they are absolutely going to need a run game if they want to have any chance today.
Yeah, got to balance it out today. Let's also see Mac Jones and how he responds to a week of full reps this week, and coming off the performance last week with 3 giveaways, the final 3 possessions of that loss, and the body language effect, right? I mean, he wears his heart on his sleeve. That could be a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, he can't hide how he's feeling in any given moment, whether he's competitive and he's yelling at people to get in the right place, or if he's, down on himself, he gets down on himself, angry, whatever it might be. That's very obvious, which to me says he cares, which is great, but you also need to be able to kind of find that level playing field at a certain point, because if you get too high or too low with your emotions, then, what we saw at the end of the game where he was trying to do it all in one play instead of kind of running through the offense. But that being said, the offense needs to work in itself when it is running.
Mac Jones, part 2 today for the Jaguars. One final thought with you here, Kai, on the other side of things. This Jaguars defense against a Lions group that doesn't have Sam Laporta today, but they've got everything else going for them. And if they're rolling, if Jared Goff has time and they're balanced with a run game, this is a tough offense to slow down.
It is. Selfishly, I hate seeing tight ends take advantage of our team, so I'm glad that Sam Laporta is not in the game, because that would have been real bad. But they have talent everywhere else, so it could happen in the run game. It could happen with their wide receiver group. I mean, Jared Goff, basically, as it always is, you need to get to Jared Goff and make him rush those throws. He's thrown interceptions, as we've seen last week, 5 of them. So that is something that they can do if they are rushed. So that's a lot on Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker to get in the backfield and disrupt him as much as possible.
All right, Kai, get your earplugs ready. Have a great day today.
Bye, guys.
Kai Stevens joining us from Ford Field in Detroit, and we're closing in on Inactives, about 16 minutes away from those. Up next, though, we'll get a Lions look at things today. Lomas Brown, former Florida Gator, longtime tackle in the NFL, including 11 years with the Detroit Lions, joins us. He's the analyst now for the Lions Radio Network. The Jags and the Lions at 1 o'clock today. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's here that a tiny newborn has the heart surgery needed to save her life. It's here that a first grader learns to speak clearly and confidently. It's here that a 12-year-old athlete builds the strength to run full speed again. It's here at Wolfson Children's Hospital that answers are found, courage is shown, and odds are beaten every day. Wolfson Children's, always here. Visit wolfsonchildrens.com.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
Frank Frangie here. When you want barbecue in Jacksonville, you want Bono's Pit Barbecue. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at EverBank Stadium because Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 70 years of authentic Southern Pit Barbecue. We are the local barbecue joint in BBQval for generations of people in Jacksonville. Go to bonosbarbecue.com to learn more or call 904-880-8310 today. And remember, if you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Unlock your potential at the University of North Florida. A beautiful campus with an inspiring environment for learning, UNF is a key partner to Florida's booming industries, providing students with direct access to internships and jobs. Set a new course at UNF and soar into your future. Visit unf.edu to learn more. Hey Jags fans, Extreme isn't always about heat, it's about flavor. And 505 knows flavor, so wake up those sleepy taste buds with 505's new lineup of premium craft salsa. Powered by the bud-kicking boldness of fire-roasted Hatch Valley chilies, 505 sauces are more than enough to bulk up any simple spread. Ignite your sense of boldness with 505's all-new assortment of fiercely fiery flavors featuring 505's new black bean and corn craft salsa. And of course, 505's award-winning flagship flavor, Southwestern style.
JP Shadrick with Mike Dempsey from the Hyundai Studios as the Publix Tailgate Show continues, closing in on Week 11. Inside 2 hours away from the Jaguars at 2-8 and the Detroit Lions at 8-1. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff time. And it's time now, Mike, to go around the National Football League.
Why, yes, it is. All right, Jags in Detroit to take on the Lions today, but the rest of the AFC South is also in action this weekend. The 4-6 Colts on the road to take on the 3-7 Jets. Indianapolis has reinstalled Anthony Richardson as their starting quarterback after he was benched for the last couple of games in favor of Joe Flacco. The Colts turned back to Richardson after dropping each of those games. Richardson's thrown for less than 1,000 yards with 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions in 10 games just a year after being selected number 4 overall in the NFL draft. Also kicking off in the 1 o'clock window, the 2-7 Titans host the team that took down Jacksonville last week, the 7-2 Vikings. Minnesota will face quarterback Will Levis today, who'll start for the second week in a row for Tennessee after missing 3 games with a shoulder injury. Then on Monday Night Football, the division-leading Texans will put their 6-4 record on the line. They travel to Dallas to take on the 3-6 Cowboys. Houston will welcome wide receiver Nico Collins back to the lineup after a 5-game absence due to a hamstring injury. Collins was leading the NFL in receiving yards when he suffered the injury in Week 5. Wide receiver CeeDee Lamb expected to play for Dallas this week despite being listed as questionable with a back injury. The Chicago Bears fired their offense coordinator Shane Waldron this week, promoted Thomas Brown to the position. The move follows a 3-game losing streak by the Bears in which rookie quarterback Caleb Williams failed to throw a single touchdown pass. Chicago reportedly plans to simplify the offense for Williams, who's been sacked a league worst 38 times on the season. In a bit of a scheduling oddity, Chicago's game against Green Bay today is the first divisional game the Bears will have played this season. Pittsburgh also playing their first divisional game when they host the Ravens today. Week 11 marks the latest in a season in which any team will have ever opened up divisional play, and it happens for both of those squads today. 27-year-old Seahawks starting center Connor Williams abruptly announced his retirement from the NFL this week. Williams, a former second-round pick of the Cowboys, has started all 9 games for the Seahawks this year, despite the fact that he suffered a season-ending ACL injury in Week 14 last season. The 7-year vet was in his first year with Seattle after signing a 1-year, $6 million deal back in August. And later today, the NFL's lone remaining unbeaten team, the 9-0 Chiefs, are in Buffalo to take on the 8-2 Bills in a battle of division leaders. Kansas City gets wide receiver Juju Smith-Schuster back from a hamstring injury. Buffalo will be without wide receiver Keon Coleman and tight end Dalton Kincaid. The Bills have won the last 2 regular season matchups between the teams, but the Chiefs eliminated Buffalo from the postseason in January with a 27-24 road win.
There you have it. A look around the National Football League. Lomas Brown, a 7-time Pro Bowl offensive lineman from 1985 to 1995, played with the Detroit Lions out of the University of Florida. A few teams after that in his career as well. He's now the analyst for the Lions radio network. And in our conversation this week, an unwavering belief in building toward the identity from the Lions leadership.
This is what they've built. They've been building this over the last 3-4 years here in Detroit, and this is the results of what you see. It's the type of guys that they draft, the type of free agents that they bring in. You know, the foundational pieces of this team are set. They made sure they took care of these guys. And that's the one thing that you know. If you come here, if you play hard, if you're a team player, you're going to get rewarded here. And there's just so many positives to being a Detroit Lion now compared to how it's been in the past. So from top to bottom, I think everything has changed around here, including the culture of the Detroit Lions.
Culture helps when you have a big physical group on both lines of scrimmage, Lomas. You know that better than anybody. And on the offensive line, I mean, it's a fantastic group, the starting 5 up front. What has made them work together so well as a unit on the O-line?
I mean, that's what it is, that chemistry. I mean, you can't say anything negative about having chemistry. These guys have been together for a while. We've added in Kevin Zeitler, who's been just a nice fit after losing Jonah Jackson. But the foundational pieces in Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker, Frank Ragnow, those guys have been there. Graham Glasgow has been here for a couple of years now, and he was here before. So it's the familiarity that these guys have with each other. It's the chemistry that they develop along with being very good. And I'm telling you, Coach Hank Fraley, he doesn't get enough credit for how he keeps this group together. Even when one piece is missing, he's able to plug somebody else in, a Dan Skipper, Kobe Sorsdahl, and those guys don't seem to miss a beat. So you have to give Hank Fraley a lot of credit for the success of this offensive line.
Lomas Brown with us, Lions Radio Network, and then the two-headed monster in the backfield really kind of balances out this offense. We know about the skill guys down the field, Jamison Williams, Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Those guys are fantastic in the passing game. But David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, obviously, you blocked for one of the best running backs in the history of the game in Barry. But, I mean, these guys have 2 different styles. How different are they? And there's trust, it feels like, in both of these backs, no matter the situation.
Well, to be honest with you, JP, it's not really, I'm telling you, people will find that out. When you look at it, you hear or see them from a distance, you think that they are really, really big differences in style. But I'm telling you, Jahmyr Gibbs runs the ball hard. He runs like a smaller version of David Montgomery between the tackles. And then with David Montgomery, he's a guy that, I'm telling you, he's had the longest run, out of those two when he broke it for an 80-yarder last year. So David has the big play capability too if you get him out in space. So it's remarkable how different they are, but how similar they are, and how each of them are able to take parts of each other's game and use it. Like I say, Jahmyr can run between the tackles. He'll surprise people at how hard he runs between the tackles. And David Montgomery will surprise people how he could get to the edges. And once he gets out there, he's a threat to take it the distance.
Lomas Brown with us, Lions Radio Network. Let's flip it now to the Lions defense. Aiden Hutchinson, of course, is done for the year. So how have they been able to fill his production, or have we seen what they have in mind yet? Seems like the debut of somebody this week might change that.
Yeah, man, that's what we hoping here in Detroit. That's what we need here, man. I mean, again, it's been feast or famine basically since Aiden's been out. And basically the feast has been up the middle with Aleem McNeil. That's where we've been getting most of our pressure and our sacks, from the middle of our defense. He's been doing an excellent job. So he's just taking his game to another level. And Josh Paschal, those guys. So we're getting significant push up the middle. Where we need it is on the edges. And that's where we're hoping that Zadarius Smith will be that guy that can provide that edge pressure that we've been missing ever since Aiden Hutchinson has gone down. So, again, we don't want to put everything on one player because it's unfair to do that. But, man, I think he could just be a huge piece to how the Lions want to look later on down this year when you start talking about playoff football and then when you start talking about defensive football. So hopefully he'll be able to just go in there and be just a great fit with the rest of those guys, and you could just see his impact immediately.
That's Lomas Brown of the Lions Radio Network, former offensive tackle. The full conversation with Lomas available on the official Jaguars Podcast Network and Jaguars YouTube. Up next, we'll get a pregame huddle up with Bucky Brooks and John Oehser, and Inactives are due in just a few minutes. We'll have those when they come down. We're about an hour and a half away from the 1 o'clock kickoff time for the Jaguars and the Detroit Lions. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Big number 1 Duval Ford is trusted by Duval families, Duval businesses, and law enforcement across Florida. We are Jacksonville's largest Ford dealer by Ford sales, with the biggest service facility to keep everything in your driveway on the road. Shop Big number 1 Duval Ford on Cassett Avenue for our low prices and nationally recognized service first experience. Big number 1 Duval Ford, proudly serving Duval since 1916.
Restaurant Orsay is a bustling French-American bistro focusing on classic French techniques with their chefs incorporating a traditional Southern influence. Celebrate life's special moments or just relax and enjoy their daily happy hour. Restaurant Orsay also offers full-service catering for any of your event needs. Restaurant Orsay, located in historic Avondale at 3630 Park Street. Visit www.restaurantorsay.com.
The power of a great team starts with the right equipment, specialized skills, and the training to win. That's why ASAP Dental Care and the Jaguars have the home team advantage. At ASAP Dental Care, we follow our playbook to perfection to exceed your expectations. Count on us to be there for you 7 days a week to deliver full-service dental care. Score a winning smile with ASAP Dental Care today.
Hey fans, it's Tyson Campbell, cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This season, your game day is getting even tastier with Al's Pizza in the stadium. And every time we get a pick, you'll score. If the Jaguars get one interception, you'll enjoy buy one, get one free pizza at any Al's Pizza location Monday through Thursday after the home game. 2 interceptions, a free dessert. And 3 interceptions, that's a free appetizer. Just tell them you want the Jags pick. Up your game and get your Al's Pizza at the game or any of their locations.
Jaguars fans, huddle up. Do you own a vehicle made in the last 10 years? If your car is outside of factory warranty or with no warranty coverage, get the best defense against expensive auto repairs with CarShield, the official auto protection partner of the Jaguars. With plans to fit every budget, CarShield helps you cover up to 5,000 parts and systems. Call 800-471-1223 now or go to carshield.com/Jaguars. That's 800-471-1223. Coverage varies by plans. View contracts and exclusions at carshield.com.
JP Shadrick, Mike Dempsey from the Hyundai Studios at the Miller Electric Center in Jacksonville. The Publix Tailgate Show continues. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. The Jaguars and the Lions coming up at Ford Field, downtown Detroit, 1 o'clock kickoff time. And time now for the Inactives. The Jaguars have a number of players down today, including running back Tank Bigsby with an ankle injury, did not practice this week. So that leaves Travis Etienne Jr. and Dearness Johnson as the active running backs for the Jags today. Trevor Lawrence, quarterback, left shoulder injury, was ruled out on Wednesday by head coach Doug Pederson. And we'll see what happens during the bye week, and possibility he could come back after if the healing continues. We'll see. A little too early to tell, but he won't play today. DeAndre Prince, cornerback, inactive for the Jaguars today, the rookie. And then Yasir Abdullah was added late to the injury report with a hamstring injury, ruled out, did not make the trip to Detroit, the Jaguars linebacker. Javon Foster, offensive lineman, is out. Esezi Otomewo, defensive tackle, inactive. And rookie defensive tackle Mason Smith, once again, inactive for the Jaguars today. Velus Jones Jr. elevated from the practice squad. The wide receiver is up today. And Anthony Pittman, linebacker, elevated from the Jaguars practice squad, active for the Jaguars today. Mike?
All right, for the Lions, a half dozen not up today, including starting tight end Sam Laporta, who's dealing with his own AC joint strain. That means Brock Wright will likely get the start for the Lions at that position today. 3 of their 11 offensive linemen not up: Giovanni Manu, Christian Mahogany, and Colby Sorsdahl. Lauren Strickland, a safety, and defensive lineman Al-Qadim Muhammad are the 6 Lions not available.
There you have it. The inactives are in. Let's head back to Ford Field, downtown Detroit, Michigan. We welcome in Bucky Brooks and John Ogier, a pregame huddle up. And let's start with the running back situation for the Jaguars today. Tank Bigsby unavailable. Travis Etienne, Dearness Johnson are the running backs. Bucky, how big of a blow is this?
I don't know, because it depends on how much we're going to try and run. It depends on which game plan we have. If we're trying to run, yeah, it becomes an issue because Tank Bigsby has been our best downhill runner. But if it's going to be more of a passing game and we're going to try and get on the edges, look, they can get it done with Travis Etienne and Dearness Johnson. This has to be one where you try and balance it out. So I would think you Doug Pederson, you Press Taylor, man, get the ball to your best players, and Travis Etienne is one of your best players.
Yeah, and I think you'll see a lot of short passing trying to supplement the running game in this one. Without Tank, frankly, that's it's huge because he and Brian Thomas Jr. have been the guys who have made big plays, who do things above the X's and O's, and you feel like you need a couple of those kind of plays to win today. So can they sustain a running game just turning the ball, just turning around and giving the ball to Travis Etienne? Probably not, but I think you'll see him supplement it.
And speaking of running games, guys, we know Detroit has a good two-headed backfield with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, but they're also explosive in the passing game. What worries you more when you're looking at it from a Jaguars defensive perspective?
Yes. No, everything worries you today because the offensive line is so good. I mean, it clears the way for them to do both things, whatever they want. The running game scares you because you've seen cases with this defense where you couldn't get off the field against the run. The interior has played better over the last couple of weeks. They'll need to maybe play their best game to keep the Jaguars in it today, Bucky.
Yeah, like when I look at the Lions, I think they're a perfectly constructed offense because they can win with force or finesse. They can run it down your throat with both running backs. They can throw it all over the yard with Jared Goff, throw it to a cast of playmakers. They have the ability to be whoever they need to be on that given day. But John is right. It starts with the offensive line. They were very intentional with how they built the team from front to back. Their offensive line enables them to do whatever it is they want to do on that day. This is going to be a tough challenge for the Jaguars because you can't load up on either approach because they're too good in all areas.
Bucky Brooks and John Oehser joining us from Ford Field in Detroit, Michigan, ahead of Week 11. The Jaguars and the Lions coming up. Mac Jones Part 2 coming up today as well. A full week of reps in practice and one game under his belt as the starter for the Jags. So what do you expect today from Mac Jones? Is it a more calm approach today, or is that just who he is, Bucky?
Mac Jones has a lot of pride. And when you have a performance that he had where things kind of got off the rails the fourth quarter, you can't wait for the next opportunity to get back. Doesn't mean that he's going to play better, but certainly a guy who has accomplished what he's accomplished in college and in the pros certainly has enough pride that he wants to improve upon that performance. Hopefully he looked at the tape and he realizes that he just has to kind of stay within himself. He doesn't need to do superhero things. If he does that, he's good enough to win games with. He just has to stay within the boundaries of his game.
Well, Christmas Vacation was one sequel that was better than the original, guys. So you need a better sequel today. I mean, I thought Mac last week played within himself for the first three quarters. Not good up until that, but had a drive. And then when forced to go downfield, you felt like when the Viking, once they couldn't play conservative, the Jaguars, and he had to throw into the teeth of the defense, the passes just weren't there. So you hope film study, reps, all that stuff that they're sort of hanging their hat on that, hey, he'll be better. You got to be. I mean, if he's not better, they can't win today.
Godfather Part 2, John.
Well, I was going to say Godfather, but one was really good too, JP, and last week's one was not good.
Right.
All right, so one way for Mac Jones to improve his play is to get the ball in the hands of Brian Thomas Jr. We've all talked about this for weeks. Do you think today is the day that they're more successful doing that?
I think they'll try. I think a lot of it in the last couple of weeks, even Press Taylor talked about on the podium this week. They had some screens called to BTJ last week and just didn't get it to him. So I think they've been trying. Are they more successful? I guess your guess is as good as mine. That's a bad radio answer, but I'm not sure how to know because I think they've been trying, Bucky.
Yeah, today, just the energy around the team, to me it feels like a game of desperation in terms of do whatever you got to do to get your best players going. And so the first drive, the script should have 2 or 3 balls that go out to Brian Thomas Jr. without read. So whether that's shovel passes, bubble screens, fly sweeps, whatever, he has to touch the ball. He has to touch it enough to have an impact on the game. To me, it's really, really simple. Let your best players determine whether you win or lose the game. Your job is to script it out so those guys have plenty of opportunities to do so.
Bucky Brooks, John Oehser joining us from Ford Field in Detroit. All right, guys, let's get to the big picture here and all these reports that have come the last day or so that there could be change on the horizon pending the result today, how it looks. I mean, this is what happens when a team's 2-8, right, guys? And these kind of things pop up with the bye week coming up next week. There already is enough pressure on this group, the coaching staff, the personnel staff, Bucky, but how much does, when these reports start filtering out, how much does that ramp up the pressure on this group?
It ramps up the pressure on everybody. Everyone senses it and feels it. I think you can feel it here in warm-ups, watching the guys go out. You look at one group, Lions out, running around, buzzing around. Our guys are out, but there's this I don't want this feel like an anvil's hanging over their head. As a coach, what you have to do is you got to block out the noise. You got to block out the noise and focus on the things that you can control. And the only thing that they can control, the next 3.5 hours when they kick it off. try and put everything into that performance, try and win a game, and then just let it kind of fall the way it falls. But that's the only thing that the coaching staff can do right now.
Yeah, the hope is that it galvanizes them. I mean, there's no way in this day and age with everybody, every player's on their phone on the way to the game today, and probably 70% of them are reading stories about this, right? So it's there. A Paul or an Anvil, you feel it. It can either galvanize you, or if you get down quick, it can be really, really ugly. So I don't know which way it'll go. I anticipate them playing hard early, and if they can stay in it, you might have sort of a win-one for the Gipper type thing. So that's a possibility. But this is a tough team to do that against, obviously. You're playing maybe the best team in football, so that adds sort of that other element of it's not that easy to galvanize and go for it because these guys are really good.
Right. Whether they're the best team in football or not, they're the best team in the NFC right now, and the Jags have earned the moniker of the worst team because they have the number one pick in the draft right now. So record indicates that, and nobody's pretending that the Jags are not big underdogs today. But if there is an area you feel the best about Jacksonville matching up with Detroit, offense, defense, special teams, a specific area of those, what would that be?
Best area. Okay, like if I say like the kicking game.
Well, the Lions are so good that it's hard to find a matchup.
So offensively and defensively, here's the thing. Defensively, I would feel good. If 16 was playing, I would say our offense against their defense could give them issues. With Mac Jones, depending on which Mac Jones shows up, it's going to be problematic because of the pressure. Their defense is going to play hard and give us some issues. Offensively, it's a tough matchup for our defense. They have weapons galore. I told you they can run the ball, they can throw it, they can do everything. The kicking game, you feel good about that, but not really because they can return it the house. There's not an area or aspect of this game that tips in the Jaguars' favor.
I would say we already talked about it. Brian Thomas Jr. and Trayvon Walker, who I think are the two best players on this team right now. I don't know if they're matchup edges, but your great players have to make big plays. Trayvon is sack fumble, get the ball to Brian Thomas Jr. That's your chance because I'm with Bucky. I don't see an edge because both of these teams, both sides of the ball for the Lions, especially the offensive line, are so good.
You know where the Jags have an advantage? Pregame analysis. This segment right here.
So I'm not even sure about that. I was listening to the Lions on the way in. They're really good.
Really good, man. They're really good all around. Really good all around. Got to bring our A game.
Absolutely. That's Bucky Brooks and John Oehser. Have a great day today, guys. Check out the weekly Huddle Up with Bucky Brooks show Wednesdays at 4 on Jaguars.com and the Jaguars YouTube channel. We're closing in on Jaguars Radio Network coverage inside 20 minutes away to countdown to kickoff. That starts at noon Eastern. Up next, a fantasy forecast, and Frank Frangie in the broadcast booth. The Jaguars 2-8, the Lions 8-1. It's Week 11. It's a 1 o'clock kickoff time. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Detroit to take on the Lions this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's West Side. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings. Before the game, after the game, and during the game.
Ancient City Brewing is celebrating 30 years of Jags football by becoming the proud craft beer partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what better way to celebrate a throwback year than to throw back some of their expertly crafted beers? From Augustine's Orange Amber Ale to their Castillo Coconut Porter, there's always something new to discover at Ancient City Brewing, including the new First and Gold Golden Ale, coming soon to a Duval County store near you. Ancient City Brewing, taste history, make history, and please always drink responsibly.
Want to cruise down an open road in high-performance style? Visit JacksCorvetteGiveaway.com for a chance to win the ride of your dreams. A brand new 2024 Corvette Stingray Coupe. With its sleek design and cutting-edge technology, this vehicle is built for speed and luxury. So what are you waiting for? Enter to win at JacksCorvetteGiveaway.com today. No purchase necessary. Open only to legal residents of the states of Georgia and Florida. 18 years of age and older. Some restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. Ends 11/15/24. For entry information and official rules, visit gotoeventlink.com/rules.
Daly's Dash is not only your Jaguars game day stop, but a great place to grab a meal any day of the week. To honor the Jags and the fans, we've crafted the Duval Sub. The Duval comes with freshly sliced turkey, ham, melted cheddar, and habanero jack cheese, topped with crisp lettuce, fresh tomatoes, and a double portion of our secret sauce, all served on a fresh roll. Come by your local's Daly's Dash today to get your delicious Duval Sub. Daly's is the official convenience store sponsor of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Imagine beautiful new windows and doors that elevate your space and keep you comfortable year-round. At Renewal by Andersen, we specialize in custom-built, energy-efficient windows and doors that are crafted to last. Right now, for a limited time, save 20% off your entire project. Visit bestwindowsflorida.com to schedule your free in-home consultation today. Restrictions apply. License number CGC 1527613.
This is the Publix Tailgate Show. JP Shadrick with Mike Dempsey from the Hyundai Studios. The Jaguars at 2-8 meet the 8-1 Detroit Lions. Ford Field, downtown Detroit, the site. Kickoff time set for 1 o'clock. The Lions have won 7 straight games from weeks 3 through 10. They're tied for their longest winning streak within a season since 1995. They're looking for 8 in a row for the first time since 1934, and it's their best start since the mid-50s. Yeah, when Bobby Lane was the quarterback. The Jaguars have dropped 3 straight, trying to get things together and find a way to a winning result. The bye week is next week, and another loss for the Jaguars would guarantee a losing record here in 2024. How about a fantasy forecast, Mike?
All right, JP, honestly, it's a pretty good week in terms of injuries, so that's good news around fantasy circles here as guys like Sam Darnold, Najee Harris, T. Higgins, Tyreek Hill, Aaron Jones, Isaiah Likely, DK Metcalf, Michael Pittman Jr., Juju Smith-Schuster. All these guys have been dealing with injury questions in the recent weeks. None of them appear on the injury report for the respective teams today. One guy to keep an eye on in the early going, not injury-wise, is former Jaguar Calvin Ridley. He is the wide receiver 3 overall over the past 3 weeks after going through a month where they practically didn't throw him the ball at all in Tennessee. They host the Minnesota Vikings today. Indianapolis at the New York Jets, and Indianapolis has gone back to Anthony Richardson as a starter. The Jets have been susceptible to the run and running quarterbacks in particular, so Richardson probably going to use his legs quite a bit in that contest to try to keep it close with New York. Baltimore at Pittsburgh, you had Jalen Warren come in as questionable. He has been cleared to go today, so he will play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, by the way, are 7-1 in their last 8 head-to-head with the Ravens. Doesn't feel like that's been the case, but it has been. In the 4 o'clock window, George Kittle, reports are he's not expected to play this afternoon, dealing with a back issue, and we'll see if that's the case. There have been mixed reporting on this, but as it stands right now, I would plan on having at least an alternative to move to if you're going to leave Kittle in your lineup. For Buffalo taking on the Kansas City Chiefs today, Amari Cooper is questionable, expected to be able to play. Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid, the wide receiver and tight end combo, both officially out for the Bills. And then on Monday Night Football, Nico Collins back. He was the leading receiver in the National Football League when he got hurt in Week 5, and he is free and clear of that hamstring injury. No injury status for him. CeeDee Lamb, however, popped up on the injury report yesterday with a back issue, and he is officially questionable to play. And obviously, with that game being played on Monday night, you're not going to have a lot of great pivots. So go out there, see if there's an available wide receiver or running back that you can have on hand, and play CeeDee Lamb in the flex so you have that flexibility to change things around. Jalen Tolbert would be ideal, but I imagine he is rostered in most 12-team leagues.
There you have it, a fantasy forecast from Mike Dempsey, and we are closing in on Countdown to Kickoff on the Jaguars Radio Network, about 10 minutes away. It's presented by the University of Florida. Florida, the #1 university in the U.S. News and World Report's #1 state for education. And let's head back to Ford Field in downtown Detroit. Frank Frangie joining us now. He'll have the call of the game coming up at 1 o'clock today for the Jaguars at 2-8, the Lions at 8-1. And, Frank, it's what it is. Teams going in opposite directions right now. The Lions, the best team in the NFC, arguably the entire league. The Jaguars just trying to get out of their own way right now. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, JP, to you and Mike. And, yeah, it is what it is. This is about as tough a challenge as you can get when you play, A, really good team, B, on the road, and C, you're using your backup quarterback who's just going to start his second game in a year. That's as tough a challenge as there can be. That's why the line is so big, one of the bigger ones of the year in the NFL. But, hey, you come play the game. Both teams are playing. It's an NFL game. It's not a college game where there's a 35-point line. Play hard and see what happens, and hopefully they will. They know it's at stake here, and they know, obviously, it's a difficult challenge.
Oh, it is, Frank. And, individually, it's a very difficult matchup for Trayvon Walker today, going against Penei Sewell, who has not allowed a sack all year. And particularly, I think there's more of a spotlight on Walker this week. We all go back to the draft where he was taken #1 overall, and Aiden Hutchinson goes with the very next pick to Detroit. Hutchinson obviously done for the year, but I would imagine there's some motivation for Trayvon to show out as much as he can today.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike, and both points you made. First of all, the Lions have a very good line. You talked about Penei Sewell, who's so good. Taylor Decker, the left tackle, is as well. They have built this team through the offensive line. That was the beginning of the building process. And you're right, Trayvon's heard it. Trayvon's heard should he have not been the first pick ahead of Aiden Hutchinson, even though Aiden's not playing the rest of this year. He knows the numbers. He knows that. Look, Trayvon's been pretty good. He's not been great, but he's got 7.5 sacks. On the heels, Mike, of a 10-sack season a year ago. Trayvon Walker's been a pretty good player. Will he be the kind of player that should be the first overall pick? We'll see. That story's not fully written yet. But I agree with you. And it's a big game for key Jaguar players. This is going to be a hard one, man. This is a good offense, and your offense is wounded a little bit. So anything your defensive guys can do to kind of keep you in this thing is gigantic, no question about it.
They have big playability outside, of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, about as fast as they come in the NFL. So Jaguars secondary last week that did some good things. Can they replicate that this week?
You know, I think they did some different things, JP. I think they certainly played more zone. Playing more zone means you've got your eyes on the quarterback. Teams that play zone tend to get more takeaways for that reason. Now, they may not cover as well, but teams that play zone that are watching the quarterback rather than turning their back to him tend to get takeaways. For a team that was so bad in getting takeaways, maybe that's what you do again. When you find something that worked a little bit, yeah, you go back to it. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to pick him off 3 times. Remember now, Jared Goff had 5 picks last week, the same day that the Jags were getting 3 from Sam Darnold. So, yeah, I would look for that. Look, the Jags are going to have to be plus in the turnovers to win this game. We all know that. They don't have their quarterback. They don't have Tank Bigsby, who's not their starting running back, but he's their best downhill runner, JP. Yeah, you need some. You're going to need to win the turnover margin. You're going to need a little bit of help to win this game. I think we all know that.
Yeah, and Frank, we know the Lions can hurt you in the passing game, but I think as a defense, you want to force them to throw. This team is very content to throw it 20 to 25 times a week and be super conservative. That performance by Goff was such an outlier last week. He had set a completion percentage record over a 3-game period not long ago, and to have 5 interceptions is not likely to happen again. But you got to be able to slow down that run game to at least make this team have to pass in the second half.
Mike, it might be the best pair of running backs in the league, David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. Amazingly, they both have the exact same amount of carries, 122. They've been a great complementary pair. Montgomery, a little bit more of a downhill guy, only 27 years old. Jahmyr Gibbs, we all know him. He's electrifying, the former Alabama player. You're right. Those two, and again, back to what we said at the top, the way they've built that offensive line. They built this to be a team that runs the football. Jared Goff's been good. He's good. He's not great, to your point. He's good. He's not great. They want to run the football. So I agree with you. If you can stuff the run, you could always say if you make a team one-dimensional, you're better off, and I know that. But this team particularly, in this game particularly, I'd love to see them certainly slow down Montgomery and Gibbs and give them a better chance to defend Jared Goff. No question about that.
Frank Frangie with us at Ford Field, Detroit. Jaguars offense getting another look at Mac Jones today, but they only looked at Brian Thomas 3 times last week, all of those in the second half. So how do they get the ball to Brian Thomas Jr.?
Here's my thought on that, and you're exactly right. Young receivers go through this, JP. They become stars. Now everybody's figured out their stars. Well, right about the time Brian Thomas was becoming this star, Christian Kirk went down. So opposing teams are saying, okay, your other really good receivers down. Your tight end's a good pass catcher. Gabe Davis hasn't made much of an impact. Parker Washington's a young player. We're going to double-team Brian Thomas, whether that means put a safety over the top, whether that means drop a linebacker a little bit. We're going to pay a lot of attention to him, just like everybody does with Justin Jefferson and some of the other great players. Number one, the player's got to fight through that. Number two, does the team has to make itself target him even when it might not be there a few times. That's what we saw with Jefferson last week. But I think you're seeing that. The other thing is, too, as part of this game, JP, the Jags have to stay on the field, man. They can't have 41 players or whatever it was last week. So I think they're going to have to run some. Without Bigsby, that's harder. But you got to hold the ball a little bit. Give your defense a chance. The defense didn't get off the field sometimes last week, but part of that's because they were on it so much. So the offense has to hold the ball some. And you're right. If you can get number 7 involved more than he has been, that's a big part of that.
Yeah, some of it was the offense, Frank, but they also gave up 12 and 17 play drives in the first quarter. So it wasn't like they were exhausted at that point in time. Look, we'd love to see the ball in Brian Thomas Jr.'s hands. I think if the Jags are going to stay in this game, they've got to get that ball in the hands of the running backs in the passing game.
Yeah, I agree with that. Short passing game, and I think you'll see more of that too, Mike. Balls in space to ETN and maybe to Dearness Johnson. Balls just over the line of scrimmage to Parker Washington and Evan Ingram. They got to stay on the field. And look, in fairness to Mac Jones, he hasn't played in a long time. He played against a team that's going to have a lot of exotic blitzes under Brian Flores. That's what he does. This Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator here, doesn't typically do that as much, so I don't think he's going to see as many complex looks. But I agree with you. Short running game, screen passes, short passing game, maybe a jet sweep here or there, something to stay on the field. I think that's exactly what you're going to see.
All right, Frank, have a great call today. Appreciate it.
Okay, fellas, thank you.
Frank Frangie joining us from Ford Field, downtown Detroit, ahead of Week 11. The Jaguars and the Detroit Lions coming up. It's countdown to kickoff. Jaguars Radio Network coverage is next. We'll have the top stories. We'll hear from Fred Taylor and his take on today's game. And the final word before kick with Jaguars head coach Doug Pederson. Thanks for listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Crazy